Hello guys, welcome to Tech and Tech. In today's video, I'm going to talk about rifles and how they were made and how they evolved from the muskets. Well, today I went to EPOS. It was an international uh, place where they showed off things, and it was about policing and safety, meaning that it was mainly cameras. There were some military grade cameras over there, but there were also policing equipment, and in the middle of them they allowed me to shoot some rifles. Now these rifles weren't real, they were laser rifles that had pneumatic recoil simulations, like they were like real like rifles. They were in fact heavy. My shoulder still hurts because I held up the rifles like this, and then when I was shooting at them, the pneumatic recoil simulator kept pushing it back, and I had to pull it down, keep it up in order to continue firing accurately. Now, the problem with this thing was that the laser patterns that it would shoot out of itself were very random. Like, I was shooting, like, the target is straight, like, you are the target, and I was shooting at over here in order to hit the target because of how dumb the sight was designed and how dumb the pattern that the laser would take was. It was very random. Like, some shots would go completely off target, while some were dead in the middle of the sight, which made me ask myself some questions. How did rifles work in the past? How were rifles made? And how do assault rifles function nowadays? Which I did some research from, the morning until now, and, I found out a ton about the history of rifles. Now, before we get on to the video, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and ring the war bell to be notified of the rest of the wars that will occur on the channel later. Now, let's start talking about actual rifles. Now, rifles are one of the most commonly used weapons in modern days. So, the history of these things goes all the way back to the Napoleonic era, where people were still using muskets. Now, rifles did exist back then. They had a long history before that, but it was very foggy. The window you're looking through to rifles was very foggy before that time, so there wasn't much information. In order to not mislead you, I will not talk about it. But the rifles truly caught on when during the Napoleonic era. It was the word rifle came from rifled muskets. In fact, they had rifling. That was all they had. That was all that was different between the rifle and the musket. Now, the rifles were extremely accurate due to rifling, while muskets were smooth bore, so they weren't very accurate. In fact, the ball inside the musket would continue bouncing off the sides of the barrel, and when it came out, it could be very unpredictable out where the bullet would go. So it wasn't very accurate, and soldiers could be easily trained with these, which was why they were mainly used in great numbers, which is why battles during the Napoleonic era took around hundreds and maybe thousands of soldiers in every single battle due to the inaccuracy of the rifle. Like, it was like firing a machine gun. Now, once you fire a machine gun with your eyes closed, you don't know where the bullets are going to go, but you know that because you're going to fire hundreds of thousands of rounds, you know that it doesn't really matter where it goes. It almost shreds anything in front of it, which was the main concept of line infantry. Line infantry were infantry mainly in 3 or 4 lines that use muskets, and like the first line would sit while the rest would put the rifles on each other's shoulders, and then they would fire continuously until they killed the entirety of the enemy army. Now, as I said, this was very inaccurate, which was why they had to fire in such large numbers, like 4 people as a single soldier. And this was the concept of muskets. Now, rifles weren't really being used until many developments were made. Well, as I said, the main difference between them was the rifling. Now, the rifling made the rifle very hard to reload because the ball needed to be forced down through the barrel, which would damage the rifling because, it's a ball and it has to fit the rifling, and it also has to fit the land, which was like the difference between the grooving and the main barrel structure. And like it had to fit into that. Well, in order for that to fit, soldiers had to push this thing down with force, which deformed the bullet and made damage the rifling. So damaging the rifling also already made the rifle inaccurate, but deforming the bullet made it even more inaccurate, which was why they didn't mainly use this until many developments were made. Well, one of them that was used mostly was when they found out that rifles can be breech loaded, meaning that instead of shoving the bullet through the barrel, you can just open the breech and then put the bullet in there. Now this was very good, but still the bullet had to go through all the bores, which would damage the rifling again. So they decided to do something else. They decided, and they thought many bullet designed specifically for the rifles were designed, but the most successful was the mini bullet. Now this was designed by a French guy, and it had a conical shape, like it had a cone-like head that would grip the rifling, and it also had a skirt made of thin metal, which when the gunpowder exploded, the energy would expand it, and it would grip onto the rifling, and it would make the bullet's rotation easier, meaning that it could be loaded without damaging the rifling, and it would also grip the rifling very hard, which made it extremely accurate, and the conical shape made it so that it had increased velocity and would damage the target more than regular bullets that were round. Now, the rifles also didn't caught on after this one because muskets were way easier to produce. Now, these were issued in mass numbers, and the British weren't really using. Weren't really using the rifle unless for sharpshooters that had to shoot over the battlefields where infantry wouldn't engage them. Like imagine trying to shoot a guy with a musket that's like 50 meters or 100 meters away from you. Of course, it would be out of your imagination. It would be very hard. It's already hard to shoot some guy 10 meters from you, let alone a guy 100 meters away. But he had a rifle, so he could easily shoot you, which was why they mainly target cannoneers and officers to make it easier for the infantry down there to deal with the cannoneers and officers and regular infantry. Now, even though the newly born American armies, mainly because they didn't have a lot of muskets, they decided to start using rifles because they were more accurate, they had better range, and since they didn't already have a full stockpile of them, they decided that why use muskets when there's an entirely better alternative, which they grabbed the rifles, which led them over to many victories against the British that still used muskets. Now, later on, the rifle design evolved, and they found out that these rifles can store bullets inside of them, which designed many things with different mechanisms. The main base of them was just a spring. The bullets would just be put on the spring, and the pressure from the spring would push the bullets upward into the barrel mechanism, which then the pin would fire them, and then they'd be shot out. And then once you pulled the bolt, it was the main concept of the bolt action rifles. Once you pulled the bolt, the pressure from the spring would just shoot the bullet out, the cartridge out. Now the next cartridge would be loaded, mainly because the tip would get stuck to the barrel and it wouldn't just pop out with the cartridge. And then you would close the bolt back again, and then the rifle was ready again to shoot. Meaning that it also had an improved fire rate other than the muskets, because the design of these two were very apart, but the muskets were still being used at the time. So this design later on evolved until they noticed that, why not just take the spring and put in an entirely separate structure from the gun, which made the magazine, the mag. Now this mag was at the same base design. It was a spring at the end. Bullets would just be shoved into this thing, and then it would be loaded onto the gun, which made the magazine-fed rifles. And these things were just basically the same. They would shoot. They had a bolt. You pull the bolt, the bullet would come into the rifle. The chamber of the last shot bullet would just get popped out. Then once you close the bolt, the bullet would stay in there, and then you could fire again. And then this design evolved until automatic weapons were made, and we're now using them. And then assault rifles were made, meaning that these were rifles designed after World War II, because research was done during World War II that suggested that main infantry engagements that are not trench warfare, because trench warfare was fairly common in World War I, but due to blitzkrieg used by the Germans in World War II, we didn't see lots of trench warfare in World War II, because blitz made trench warfare needed a lot of time to prepare. Blitzkrieg was because Hitler fought in World War I, and he understood the terrors of trench warfare, and he designed the blitzkrieg, which was just go as fast as you can and not give the enemy any time to prepare for what they're going to do. They did not see much the trench warfare in that time. And therefore, they found out that most infantry engagements were below 300 meters, which was why they decided that, well, you don't need a rifle that can shoot over 1.5 kilometers to shoot at targets that's just 300 meters away from you. It would be overkill. Which was why they decided to shorten the barrel lengths and, well, increase the fire rate, which led to assault rifles being made. The first one of them being the Sturmgewehr 48, no, 38. I think 39, 41. I don't exactly remember. And, well, this thing was, well, the Germans' main Gewehr, and it was, well, used by their soldiers in order to fight in close engagements. And then, well, later on, this guy was the father to the AKs, the M4s, the other assault rifles in the world that I don't know of, maybe the FAMAS and other rifles that are like it. And this guy was basically the father of all of them because it was the first assault rifle ever made. Of course, the design was inspired by many other rifles before it, but they were never, well, they weren't like they weren't put into category of assault rifles. They were automatic rifles, like the BAR. It's just Browning automatic rifle. The name suggests it, automatic rifle. It wasn't an assault rifle; it was an automatic rifle. And, well, this thing later on caught on to the AK that I fired at the exhibition today. Oh yeah, I found the first word I was going to use during the first time I mentioned this. It was an exhibition. Anyway, make sure to like the video, make sure to subscribe to the channel, and ring the war bell to be notified of the rest of the wars that will occur on the channel later. Thank you for watching again, and stand by for my next videos.